and 7 Spanish angels took another angel home.
Hey, I'm Willie Nelson, and you're watching HempRock TV.
We don't run, and we don't compromise, we don't quit, we never do.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am MSgt Vance, the voice of freedom's voice. Let's talk about Afghanistan. Nobody wants to, but it's all they can talk about. How did we get there? We got there after 9/11, going after Al-Qaeda. And somehow, when we had them cornered up in Tora Bora, we quit and invaded Iraq. Why the hell did we do that? What was the purpose of invading Iraq at a time when we didn't need to? Some personal beef between the Bush family and Saddam Hussein? I don't know. But I think the whole thing was about oil in the long run. The push to get rid of Saddam Hussein, that was not in the plan, not in the public plan, but it definitely was in the minds of President Bush and his allies. You know, we didn't learn the lesson of Vietnam. The lesson of Vietnam is you can't give a people a government who have no heart and soul into it, who don't want it, or who are not advanced enough to understand it. I don't know. But when they look at the mess our democracy can be at times, maybe it's not surprising they might want something else. You never know, I know. But the neocons, they got their second shot at trying to get turn a country into a little America in the middle of the Middle East. You know? Hopefully, nation building will be a thing of the past from now on. I mean, we should have went in Tora Bora and finished that up with surrender of the Taliban. All we had to do was go get Osama bin Laden. And instead we stopped all of that and went and invaded Iraq. 20 years of trying to build a democracy in the Middle East, and it all collapsed in less than a day. There was no loyalty to the Afghan government, not really. The corruption was too deep. And corruption in these countries is almost a way of life, particularly in Afghanistan. So I'm not surprised at their the collapse and lack of support for the government that they showed when the Americans decided to leave and the Afghan army collapsed. Now, if they built that civilian government on their own, they would support it, but they didn't. It was given to them. And it could not survive the corruption, and it could not survive the inability to do the right thing. People are trying to survive, and they're not really interested in the greater good. And that can bring a lot of that stuff on. Now, the evacuation is going real well. They're getting a lot of people out. And I think Biden's done a good job of handling it. I think he did the right thing in standing by his guns. Well, he couldn't get out of it anyway. Trump had negotiated that. Trump released the leader of the Taliban and negotiated that our date for leaving, and Trump's pretty well stuck, or Biden's pretty well stuck with it. But I think, considering who he's stuck with, I think he's done a pretty good job. And part of what I think is Trump set that up to give him a hard time. There were several things Trump has done to try and give Biden a hard time. They got rid of that treaty. He pulled us out of that treaty where we're allowed to fly over the other countries and take data and take pictures and do what we need to do. I mean, the treaty you could do that, but you had to share the data you got with all the other countries. And it was a good way to keep an eye on countries who are a little, let's say, like Russia, always wanting to cause trouble. Now, Afghanistan is a place where empires go to die. And Russia got their ass kicked. We didn't get our ass kicked, but we decided to leave. And I don't see it as a loss. I see it as a mistake. We should have never been there in the first place. I mean, after we got done at Tora Bora, we should have never been there in the first place. So, whatever you think of Afghanistan, militarily, we kept them in check for all that time. But the Afghans were not willing to stand up and be a military that would take the job and finish it, and we would leave. They couldn't do it. They either didn't want to or weren't willing. You got to have some love of country to be wanting to put your life down for its government. And I don't think they love their country, but they don't love their government. And now they really don't. Everybody's getting the hell out. And the evacuations are going well, I got to admit. They're getting tens of thousands of people out daily. And that's good. But what does that leave? There was an interesting episode of Doonesbury in the newspaper, and I want to read it to you because it's really great. The character BD, who served in Vietnam, is riding through Saigon with an American businessman who has business interest in Vietnam. And he says, and I'll read it to you, BD's looking out the window of the cab as they're going through Saigon, and he says, and there's the Rex Hotel where the officers hang out, man. It hasn't changed one bit. Nope, it's still the colonial hotel of choice, says the businessman. And there's the Opera House in the Continental, says BD. And wow, what? BD says, I can't get over all of Marlboro and Pepsi signs. And the businessman says, I know. It turns out that we won. You can have hope for Afghanistan in the same light. Because what was the first thing that happened while all those evacuations and all the trouble around the airport was a bunch of Afghans unraveled a 300-foot-long Afghan government flag and began protesting. That's a good sign. They had kind of a modern democracy with freedom for women and whatnot, and they don't want to give it up. And that's a good sign. That tells you there's a spark there. That tells you that although we wasted a lot of money, mostly due to corruption, we left a spark. And hopefully it'll grow into something. But the Afghan people are going to have to do it for themselves. We can't continually do it for them. And we shouldn't. It's not our job. If we want to financially help support a government, and it's a government that people support, then we should. If it's not, then we should stay out of it. Now, that's my opinion. And opinions are like rear ends. Everybody's got one. So just be happy. There's a couple good signs there. And maybe, just maybe, eventually, they'll be able to break through. And there will be a democracy in the Middle East. But they have to do it themselves. We can't do it for them. That's it for tonight. Cancer, I got one more treatment, and then we're going to do a scan, and I'll let you know what happens. Other than that, things are going pretty good. Everybody have a nice day, and see you next time.
Hi, I'm Willie Nelson, and the Willie Nelson Teapot Party and I endorse Veterans for Medical Cannabis Access.
Just roll me up and smoke me when I die.